We're back in scene 7, and the king has just read the letter to Laertes that Hamlet is on his way back, and he has a story to tell. Um, the king confirms that it is Hamlet's writing. Okay, he says here "naked" in exclamation. He's not sure what to make of that, um, and he says that he will be coming home alone. Okay. Um, And the king asks Laertes, "Can you explain it?" But Laertes says, "I don't know, but let him come." Okay. Um, and Laertes wants him to come so that he can take his revenge against Hamlet, um, so that Laertes lives and can tell him to his teeth, "Thus didst thou." Right? Here's what you did. You killed my father. Okay. Um, all right. So now they want to come up with a plan. The king says, "All right, will you be ruled by me?" Um, and the Laertes agrees, and so now the king comes up with a plan. And the plan is that we need to come up with a way to kill Hamlet that he shall not choose but fall, so he has no choice but to die, and there will be no wind of blame for his death, so that even his mother shall uncharge the practice and call it an accident. All right? So they need to make it look like an accident. So Laertes can get his revenge, but it can't look like murder. All right? Sounds a lot like what the king did with his brother, right? Make it look like an accident. Okay? All right. So um, Laertes says, "You can devise it, you'll come up with the plan, and I'll be the organ, I'll be the instrument." All right? Um, all right. So they come up with this plan, and the plan is. Um, the plan is that, and he starts talking about it down here at 95 and following, that Hamlet noticed that Laertes is great with his rapier, right? Fencing. Um, and he cried out once, "It would be a sight indeed if one could match you." Right? So here's the plan. Um, the plan will be to stage a kind of duel between Laertes and Hamlet. All right? Um, all right. So now we continue on. They continue thinking about the plan. All right. Um, and uh, and Laertes, of course, is still kind of fiery about it. He really wants to go about it quickly. He says that he'd love to be able to cut Hamlet's throat in the church. Um, the king says, no place indeed should murder sanctuarize, make meaning like provide sanctuary or make holy. Revenge should have no bounds. That's an interesting thing to say there, especially given Hamlet has kept his revenge so bounded. Um, but again, the king tries to sort of calm Laertes and say, "Look, I want you to stay within your chamber. When Hamlet's returned, he'll know that you are also home, and um, we will come up with a plan. He won't suspect anything. He's free from all contriving, so he won't examine the foils. All right, the swords that we use. Okay, and you'll be able to choose whichever sword you want, um, and and we'll have this duel. Okay, and Laertes says, "I'll do it, and I'll anoint my sword. I'll bring the poison, um, and I'll dip my sword in it, and so we'll be able to kill him and make it look like an accident." Okay. Um, all right. Okay. So now we move on here and continue. Um, the king also comes with a plan that will make wagers on this battle, so that that after each strike with the rapier, there'll be sort of money exchanged or some sort of prize to be won. Okay, um, and the king comes up with a plan that says, um, "We'll get him all hot and dry in the fight." And so when Hamlet calls for a drink, I'll have a chalice prepared for him, um, where if he sips that, um, he'll die. So if he happens to escape your venom, your venomed rapier, then he'll die that way, right? So there's a two-pronged plan here to poison Hamlet. One with a chalice, one with an envenomed sword, okay? Excuse me, now all of a sudden the queen enters in, and she says that his sister is drowned. All right, Ophelia has drowned. And she goes through and explains how it happened. It was up by the willows near a brook, um, and the her pendant boughs, her coronet weeds, clambering to hang, an envious sliver broke when down her weedy trophies herself fell in the weeping brook. Okay, so she was holding on to a tree branch and it fell. Was she hanging herself on a tree branch and it fell? It's not entirely clear. You'll see in Act 5, too, there's some ambiguity about whether Ophelia intended to kill herself. Um, if she did intend to kill herself, well, then that's yet another parallel with Hamlet, who has so often considered killing himself. Um, he played crazy. He thought about killing himself. Here, Ophelia really did go crazy and maybe really did kill herself. Okay? So listen to the description of the way she was in the water, her clothes spread wide, mermaid-like a while they bore her up. She was chanting old tunes while she kind of floated there in the water. It was almost like she wasn't even aware of the danger she was in. And then finally she got used to the element, and finally the garments were heavy and they sank her, and she came to her death. Okay? So here Laertes has just heard about this revenge plot for his father's death. Now he finds out his sister is dead. Okay? He says he'll forbid his tears because she's had too much water already. But Laertes concludes by leaving and saying, "I have a speech of fire that fain would blaze, but that this folly drowns it." So again, we get this vision of Laertes as full of conviction and resolution and ready to execute his plan. All right. Now, the king and Gertrude follow and say the king says how much he had to do to calm his rage. Now I fear this will give start to it again. Now notice, the king's being honest here, but there's a double meaning to these words, right? He did have to do a lot to calm Laertes' rage, but he did that to redirect it from himself towards Hamlet, right? And to make it so that his revenge against Hamlet looks like an accident rather than an act of revenge. And now when the king says, "Now I fear this will give it start again," he's being honest again. He's worried that Laertes will do something. And the problem is, if Laertes does something to Hamlet, it wouldn't look like an accident. And the king is very committed to this idea. Remember, I mean, he's worried about the public, and he's worried about how Gertrude will take it. He needs Hamlet's death to look like an accident. Okay? So that's where we are at the end of Act 4. Act 5 is going to begin, and that's when we realize that Hamlet is back in Denmark, back at the castle. And that's going to be when all these various threads come back together and tie up to resolve this action.